Happy Hour. I'm Amanda Farmer. It is lovely to be with you here again this week for Friday Happy Hour. This is the 7th week that we have been running Happy Hour over here on Your Strata Property Facebook page. I started it way back when we first had word that we would be quarantined for a while, isolating, perhaps not enjoying our regular Friday socializing that we're used to doing. I often say in the Strata sector, we work hard and we like to play hard as well. So I know there are lots of Strata managers out there, committee members as well, a few lawyers who might be missing their Friday afternoon catch-ups, their Friday drinks. So I am very pleased to be able to bring you virtual Friday Happy Hour. I do have my drink here. I've got my special glasses out today, have my champagne in there. Lovely to share a drink with you, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be alcohol, whatever it is that floats your boat on a Friday afternoon. We are eventually going to be talking about all things Strata, and I do have a very special guest for you today, as I like to do on Friday Happy Hour. I will welcome her in very soon. But if you are there, if you are watching now, feel free to give me a thumbs up. Let me know that it's all coming through loud and clear, that you're out there in cyberspace, that the internet is working. I tend to move my location a little bit to make sure I can get the best light and the best internet. So we'll see how we go this week. If you're there and you want to say hello, pop me a hello in the comments. Let me know where you are today, if you like, what suburb you're in. I can see a few of you there. I can see Savia saying, hi Amanda, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Savia. I can see Matthew and Melissa. Matthew is from the Strata Vote team in Adelaide. Great to see you. Melissa's been in my inbox today as well. I've got your email, Melissa. Great to see you on a Friday. Bruce is here. Wonderful. Bruce, I'm wondering if you found it a little bit easier to access the video this week. We did do some little magic tech steps that my team, Rochelle in particular, helped me set up so that there was a reminder that came out on the page, and hopefully that's all happened smoothly. Nathan, hello. Nathan's also saying hello to Allison. She is here waiting in the wings, Nathan. David, hello. Hi, Henry from Melbourne grad. Hi, Michelle. This is her weekly social outing. It's lovely to hear that. Great to be here. Great to see you here. Hi, Debbie from Dubbo. Now, when I run my webinars, when I run these live events, and I am here myself, generally no one around except family members and dog in the other room, it can get a little bit, feel like you're a little bit lonely and that there aren't that many people out there. So I always do like to ask you to say hello, give me a comment so that I feel like you're right there with me, and I do call you out and let you know that I can see you. Now, the last few weeks, doing a lot more webinars, doing a lot of Facebook Lives, I have heard a few times the romper room reference, the magic mirror, is that what it's called? The magic mirror reference. When I first heard, Amanda, you're doing that magic mirror thing, I didn't actually know what that meant. So sorry guys, I missed the romper room boat, and it's not me trying to take you back to your childhood. It's just my way of saying hello and letting you know that I see you and I appreciate you. So hello to Natalie, great to see you. Natalie is saying Rochelle is great. She is great, and she is here watching in. I'm sure she'll give you lots of love, Natalie. Melissa saying hi, Allison. Sean, hello, great to see you. Gary, hello from Gary and Patricia in Sydney. Olivia, Heidi, wow, it is so wonderful to see you all here today. Thank you so much for joining me. I am in Sydney and it has been freezing here today. So I'm looking forward to a rugged up wintry weekend. I will actually be doing some visiting. If you haven't heard, if you're not in New South Wales, if you're not on top of the loosening of our restrictions here in New South Wales, we can now go and pay visits and have visitors come to our households, only 2 at a time, though children are not included. We do have an updated public health order as of today, 1 May. It was published last night. I do have a link for you in our notes, and we might pop that in. I'm chatting to Allison about that, just putting Rochelle on the spot there. But we will be really interested to know how you're spending your weekend with some loosened restrictions. I know there are loosened restrictions in WA as well. We've been hearing in the media, I think they're allowed to have gatherings of 10, which is really exciting. I'm not sure what's going on in Queensland. So our Queensland happy hourers who are here from Queensland, let me know if you're able to do some visiting on the weekend. We are looking forward to that indeed. I am doing my magic mirror thing, and I am seeing Despina. Hello, Emiliana. Lovely to see you. And Despina's from Runaway Bay. Lovely. Great to have you here with us, Despina. Now, I am very shortly going to welcome in our special guest for Happy Hour. And she has been a previous podcast guest. So if you are up to date on the podcasts, you will have heard me speaking with this very intelligent, very articulate lady on the podcast. The special guest today is Allison Benson. Allison is a director of Kerin Benson Lawyers, which is a law firm operating from both New South Wales and the ACT, and specialising in, of course, strata and building defects law. As I was posting on the page today and sending emails out saying this is truly a happy hour, you are today getting 2 for the price of 1, 2 New South Wales strata lawyers here for you, answering your questions. I did say that we'd also probably have a glass of wine in hand, so just be gentle. Allison has been working in strata and community title law since 2008, and she is a strata lawyer who believes that to work in strata, you must keep a sense of perspective and a sense of humour. And Allison does an excellent job at keeping both. She also writes a blog on strata law, and I might invite her to share the link for that. We'll pop it in the notes for you so you can check it out. The previous podcast episode where I chatted to Allison was episode number 203, and we were talking about that very interesting tribunal decision, the Pulisson decision, where it was found that owners in New South Wales can no longer go to the tribunal to claim damages if they are seeking a damages payment from the owners corporation. So if we have time, we might get a little update from Allison on that, because I do understand that that may be under appeal, which is interesting. But I have to press my buttons here and make sure that we get Allison into the stream to say hello. So here we go. Welcome, Allison Benson.
Hi guys, I'm not used to this camera technique, so just bear with me. It has been a very long day, so while Amanda was very, very gracious and said that I am highly intelligent and can speak, I have been up since 5 o'clock and have had a hearing today. So unfortunately, you're getting the brain dead version of myself, and I do apologise for that.
It is a Friday, and yes, I understand you were in, you told me, an NCAT interim hearing, I think, by phone, I imagine. Are you able to share any, without revealing the names of the innocent or not so innocent, some details on how that went, what that was about?
Well, I think the having to have a sense of humour definitely does apply to when you were trying to do anything to. Thank you, Natalie. I can see the comment. Lovely. You need to have a sense of humour when you're doing any of this. The tribunal members are human like us. It's new technology. Everybody is getting used to it. So there are a few whoopsies. There are a few, I didn't quite get that on mute in time. Yes, exactly. This is the second full hearing that I've done via telephone, as opposed to the normal face-to-face. I've done directions hearings before by telephone, and that's, they're relatively simple matters, whereas when you have to go into cross-examination by telephone, it is actually quite difficult to judge because you have no visual clues. There's no visual reference. You can't see what the tribunal member, their face. You can't see whether they're looking at their papers, whether they're bored, whether the other side are bored, what the expression is on the person that you're trying to talk to. So it's quite intense, actually. But again, it is what it is, and everybody is adapting really well. I think, and I have seen reports in the news. The Newcastle Law Society actually sent around a clip of a judge in the US, because everything super cool happens over there in terms of stupidity. And I haven't even started drinking yet. Oh my God, you poor people.
You don't have to be drinking to say that.
Well, no. Well, see, my minion hasn't gotten home yet to wander in with my my glass, but hopefully he'll be.
She has people who do that for her.
Yes, yes, it's called a Trevor. Everybody should have one. They're very, very handy. So there was a judge that actually wrote into a etiquette, and he had video conferences. This is in the US, of course, with a lawyer that had been in bed at the time, and another lawyer that wasn't dressed properly.
And this is video. This is video.
This is absolute video. I'm lucky. I actually have a dedicated home office, so I know, even though it's orange, and why not have a fun and funky office? At least I know that there's not going to be random things happening behind me that I don't necessarily know about. But why would you appear on a video conference to a court while you're lying in bed in your PJs? Nothing says professionalism like that.
Only in America, I like to think. If anybody else has had that experience in this country, that it would be interesting to know. But definitely, I think our courts, our tribunals are doing a fabulous job. I haven't had a full-blown hearing yet, but I've certainly appeared by phone on directions hearings for both NCAT and for the Land and Environment Court, and they have gone quite smoothly, all things considered. What is interesting is planning at the moment for the future, because when you are attending these directions hearings and you're thinking about playing out the preparation of the case, the question is this going to end up being a case that we run by phone or a case that we're going to be able to be here in person? And just nobody knows that at the moment, where the future is going to lead us. And a particular Land and Environment Court case I have at the moment relates to a dividing fence and to certain trees, dividing two strata properties. And in the Land and Environment Court, in those kinds of disputes, what they usually do is go out on site and have the hearing on site, so that the commissioner who's making the decision can be present and have a look at exactly what everybody's talking about, which is fabulous, works really well, great idea, but nobody knows whether in a month's time, 2 months' time, we will be able to have those kinds of hearings or not. And it's really hard for the parties to decide what they want to do.
Yeah. Well, even in a standard case where you don't actually have to go out on site, it's still, how much paper do you have? How do you manage your paper if you've got your clients? Because your clients, generally, they're paying for the service for you to represent them. They want to hear, they want to be involved. And there's only so many people that can be on a telephone line before that telephone line starts becoming crackly and disoriented. The first hearing or final hearing that I did this way, it was horrendous. Unfortunately, I don't think the people on the other side were very good with technology. Not that I'm a technological guru, but even I know that you can't stick your hand over the phone and everybody's not going to hear that. So they instead of using mute, they were putting the tribunal on hold, for instance. Didn't go down particularly well, you can imagine. But that happened 5 or 6 times, and I'll just seek instructions from my client and then turn. I just picture the person turning and having the conversation with the client to the point where I said, look, I can hear you. I just want to raise this with you. So little things like that. Do you have your client in the room with you? Can you have your client in the room with you? Today's, I did it a different way. So the first one I did, my client actually wanted to see me and to be able to flag with me when she wanted to say something. So I had her set up on Zoom and I had the tribunal on a telephone conference. So in the background, I had a client whenever they wanted to say something, and I had a visual clue, and then they were using the comments, much like their comments on Facebook. And that worked quite well. So they felt engaged. They knew what was happening in the process. Today we tried it via telephone, and I had a my mobile and it was on speaker, my client on the other end muted, and then just unmuted when they wanted to say something, and they were just using a chatting facility when they wanted to say something that wasn't heard. So practical things are really important at the moment. And make sure that your client is in an area where they do have good reception and good video, otherwise that does not work.
Yes, indeed. We are all improving our skills, that's for sure, and it's going to be a different world for all of us on the other side, especially lawyers, learning these new things. I just want to head over to the comments because we've got a lot of new people popping in. It's great to see you. I can see Jane Ann, great to have you joining us. I know you know Allison well as well. Carol, lovely to see you. Robin says Canberra is 7 degrees. Yes, I think we're getting all that cold weather from you there in the ACT. Despina says, hi, yes, we have restrictions being lifted on the sunny Gold Coast this weekend, and we have a long weekend. And Despina knows you, I think, Allison, recently engaged you and is interested to hear from you and to see you, which is great. So, yes, I did ask earlier what's happening around the country, wherever you are. In New South Wales, as of today, we have our new or our amended public health orders taking effect. So from the 1st of May, we are now able to have gatherings of, I'm just having a look up because I want to give you the actual wording that we have in our order. We are allowed to have 2 people visit a household now in New South Wales. And I will, Rochelle, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but in our notes there, if you do have the link to our public health order that relates to restrictions on gathering, if you can pop that in the comments for me, that would be great. So we still have all of our, we can't leave our residence unless we have a reasonable excuse, and we have our list of reasonable excuses, but we can now visit another household if it is a maximum of 2 adults visiting that household at any one time. Okay, we don't count children in that count. It's 2 adults, and by the looks of it, as many children as you want to bring along with you, which is cool. But the idea being that you're going there for mental health reasons, for caring, for connection, for social connection. We're visiting our family. We're visiting, letting our children see their grandparents. Have you got plans this weekend, Allison, to do any visiting?
I'm the most boring person on the face of the planet, I've decided. I have my Ugg boots firmly planted on my feet. It is freezing. I am sitting in Newcastle. I have my scarf. I have my beanie. I've been persuaded to take it off for this occasion. So everybody, sorry you don't see my beanie. But I do have my beanie close to hand, let me just say. Ugg boots on, scarf on, and I intend to light my fire. As in my physical fire in my fireplace.
Excellent. Sounds perfect.
If it had been last weekend, it was beautiful. And I would have done some visiting, but no, bugger that, I say. Bugger that this weekend. So,
Fair enough. I'm seeing Sean, who's come in. Hi, Sean. Hi, Anne. Jacqueline, hello, welcome. You're saying that you've got a few questions. We absolutely will be leaving time for questions. You're welcome to pop them into the comments if you've got your Strata questions that you want to make sure Allison and I get to, or to save them up towards the last 10 or 15 minutes. We generally head over there and do some rapid fire random questions. I saw a post in there from Henry. Henry's left me a YouTube link. The standard to
sorry,
meet Amanda.
Henry. Not.
Oh, yes. I love it. The purple.
No, it recently arrived in the mail from my mother, who decided that I needed a beanie in jacaranda colours because I am from Grafton.
Great timing. Well, great timing. It is freezing. You need to wear that beanie, walking the dogs. I'm hoping we'll get to meet the dogs before the hour is up, that they come bursting in the door. What do you think, Allison, with these easing of restrictions around the country? We're hearing from New South Wales, we're hearing from WA, restrictions being lifted in Queensland as well. I live in Strata, as I've said before. I live in a fairly busy, bustling area of Sydney that has had a bit of recent media attention, I'll say that. I know that residents in my building are a little bit concerned that this weekend is going to be a busy one around the town. And when you're in a Strata building, you're dealing with noise, you're dealing with, if your neighbours are having a party, you might be more impacted than you'd otherwise be in a freestanding property And there's still this concern that if the more people we have coming to our building, the more exposed we are to the coronavirus. What do you think? Are you hearing from apartment residents and what you're seeing in the media? Is that a legitimate concern? Is that something we're going to see more of? Are you already getting those noise complaints and they're about to increase? What do you think?
Look, I think we are. I would be a little concerned if I was living in a strata community about the easing of restrictions, quite frankly. And it's just because the more people out and about, the more chances there are. I know that the testing has increased. I think the last time I heard the news, it was something like 7,000 people per day getting tested.
Yep.
I don't know if that's increased today. As most of these things with COVID, it changes on a daily, sometimes even almost an hourly basis. So it is difficult to keep up, but I would be concerned and make sure I keep my social distancing when I'm in the common property areas, walking in and walking out, hold the door open for people. Let's not be absolute cows about things, but, just keep your distance generally if you can. I have personally noticed in supermarkets, bane of my existence anyway, those of you that know me well know that I have an absolute fear of shop attendants, and I don't know why. I just hate them. They hate me. I hate them. Supermarkets, I know, it's random, isn't it?
Fair enough. Everybody's got their thing.
Well, but unfortunately, this is a self-fulfilling one, because when I go into a shop, I'm looking at them as if don't come anywhere near me. I think they think I'm shoplifting, so they come over near me and I just have to leave the shop because I don't like them. So I don't. To me, COVID was great. I could shop online without having to go into a shop. It was brilliant. So there's the antisocial me. But having said that, getting back to the purpose, I have been hearing from people in Strata, and I've been having all sorts of questions and queries. Noise has been a big one. Construction work. There seems to be a lot of people doing renos at the moment. I know I went down, well, actually, I was going to say I went down to Bunnings. I lie. The minion who has just pulled up in the driveway went down to Bunnings on the weekend, right, and came home and told me the lines were just, extravagant to get into Bunnings. So there's obviously a lot of people doing renos. That's not the only person I've heard report back on the Bunnings lines, which is always a good sign of the handy home renovators. I have had a number of queries about people, and in fact I did a training seminar yesterday for some accountants, of all people, that wanted to know about Strata. And hi accountants, there's nothing wrong with you guys. They were wanting to know, well, so can we just tear out this window and put another window in? I thought, okay, you're doing this by yourself? Apparently so. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of weird and wonderful things. We've also had not just the easement of restrictions in New South Wales for gatherings, there's also been an easement of conditions on construction work. And essentially, for work that requires a development consent, I think I may be about to get dogged, people, but for work, I can hear them trying to. Here they come. But for work that requires a development consent, and this is complying development certificate work as well, because that's still considered a development consent, the hours that you can do the work have increased. So instead of actually complying with whatever council had told you previously, now the restrictions have been broadened right out. And I need to have a quick look at my computer, but from memory, it was broadened out past the standard past the standard, 8 o'clock to about 5 o'clock for work. It actually increased the time that hammering and really heavy production instrument drilling could be done. And for all the people that are working at home, you are not even getting the breaks now before breakfast and when you start work. If you're like me, I deliberately get up at 5 o'clock to hit the work, and that's when I churn out a lot of my work. I work better in the mornings. So that absolutely kill me.
Well, that could be one of the benefits, let's say, to living in a strata scheme, because even if the council consent says that you can work these extended hours, what about your bylaws? What do the bylaws in the building say? And anybody who has been with me, has been in my circle for some time will know that Amanda loves to talk about bylaws. And it is important, if you are an owner, if you are a manager, to always remember that it is such a great starting point when you're checking what is allowed or not allowed to happen in our building. Always go back to the bylaws, because it could well be, and again, depends on the terms of your bylaws, what they say, whether they cross-refer to council requirements or whether they have their own specific requirements. If those bylaws say, as they do in my building, that you can't start noisy work before 8 o'clock and you must finish by 5 p.m. on a weekday, and you can only do 9 till 12 on a Saturday and no work on a Sunday, then those bylaws remain in place and can be enforced against owners carrying out contract work, even if the council development consent has different hours in it. Do you agree with that, Alison?
I do agree with that, and it makes it really important to have a standard works bylaw. Lots of schemes have bylaws permitting different types of work, but not many schemes have work to say, or have a bylaw to say, well, these are the conditions that apply to any piece of work in the scheme. So if you have a lovely bylaw that says, you can start work at 8:30 or 9 o'clock and you can only go through to 5:30 or 5 o'clock, brilliant. I mean, when we all weren't working from home, that was perfect, because it let people do what they could do, quite frankly, and gave you some time to, rest and relax at home. With the extension of hours, and to give you a general idea, under the general restrictions, the use of power tools or equipment, so that the heavy noises that I was talking about before, the pneumatic tools, you can't do it on a Sunday or a public holiday before 8 o'clock or after 8 o'clock, or on any other day, not before 7 or after 8 p.m. So you need to have a look at the regulations, but if you do have a scheme that has a serial renovator, or just perhaps an opportunistic renovator, it would be a very good idea to think about a general works bylaw setting conditions for that. Now, the other point is, if this person isn't doing the work themselves, are they having contractors coming and going and increasing the number of people that are coming into your scheme at a time when you might want a lot of people coming into your scheme, quite frankly? So there's a couple of different aspects of it.
Yeah, I've definitely heard from owners in buildings who have been told by building managers, by committee members, sometimes by strata managers, that they are to cease work or that they are not to commence work, because this is a time when we do want to be limiting people coming into our building. I have been very careful to, when I'm asked for advice, or if it is a platform like this and I'm giving some guidance, to say, well, as far as I'm aware, there is no law that prevents contract work from continuing. And as you're saying, Alison, in fact, the law is quite different. It's encouraging that to continue to support our economy. There is no strata law. If the owner has approval that they need from the owners corporation, from the body corporate, they have their council approval if they need it, you've already said they can go ahead, then I think you're on dangerous ground as a committee or as a building manager saying, no, all bets are off, you are not going to be proceeding. And that was something I was seeing more so a couple of weeks ago. And I think there's been an ease off on that, as people, as you said, things are changing so fast and people are not quite understanding what the laws say, what they mean, and it takes a little while to get used to them and to consume as much correct, accurate education as you can about what's going on. And then I find that things kind of settle back down into a little bit of sense. I'm seeing a comment there from Sean, who mentioned, I think you must have posted at the same time as I was mentioning it, Sean, if there's a rule or a bylaw in place in a building, then yes, absolutely, that's the place to look about renovation work guidelines as a first port of call. David is saying, is there any chance that bylaws might be waived for the duration? I assume you're asking there, David, would there be some state legislation that would override bylaws? My answer is I hope not. There isn't now, and I don't, Alison, you let me know, but I don't think there's any plan to do that. Quite frankly, there's been no mention of strata at all, I have to say, so I'd be quite shocked if they took that drastic step.
No, I'm not aware of anything, and I did just email somebody that I know that is working quite heavily in getting some of this emergency legislation passed, and I emailed them shortly before coming on air to say, hey, look, is there any update? Because it would have been nice to give everybody an update. But I think at the moment we are the forgotten people. We're, and I do understand there's a list that, needs to be looked at. One of the very good things that has actually happened has been the lifting of witnessing of certain documents.
Tell us about that. In New South Wales, we're talking.
Yeah, this is in New South Wales, and it's been really effective. I mean, I used it this week a couple of times already to make sure that I had affidavits for the hearing that I did this morning. So I had people sitting down on the border preparing affidavits, and we did it via Zoom.
Witnessing by audio-visual link is the legislation we have in place now in New South Wales.
Yeah, and it's really effective. It does take a little while. Everybody needs to get used to the technology, but once you're au fait with the technology and you can talk people through it, I actually found it to be quite good. As long as the person shows you the document, you see that person witness the document. Sign the document. They can show it to you. You see what it is. You've done the usual checks. So if you don't know the person for 12 months. You ask for a copy of their ID, whether it's passport, license. So those requirements are still there. That person then, sends the document back to you, and you can say, yes, I've witnessed this, and you just need to say how you've witnessed it, as in I've witnessed it in a real-time audio-visual link, and I confirm that this is the document.
So that's really helpful for those of us who are involved in litigation and having to put together affidavit evidence. This came out just last week, and I mentioned it on the run in last week's happy hour. The video from this time last week will be on the page if you want to check it out. But at the time there was a question as to whether that extended to attesting the affixing of the common seal, which strata managers often have to do. And from my reading of that particular piece of legislation, it doesn't extend that far. However, our owners corporations, our strata committees can delegate to the strata manager the secretarial function of affixing the seal and signing documents on their behalf. So there is a way around that. Where I think there might be a difficulty, and we can put some feelers out to land registry services in New South Wales, is when it comes to registering bylaws. I think they are still requiring the actual seal be affixed, and that's where I think some of our strata managers, I know we do a lot of that in my office, and we're sending the documents off to the strata manager. They're saying, I'm going to have to go into the office to get the seal. I don't think that has been dealt with in New South Wales yet.
I don't believe it has. We do a lot of the bylaw regos as well. From memory, a requisition came through either earlier this week or late last week, because we had what we were assured by the strata manager was not an electronic copy or an electronic stamp. They said, no, this is a real, we did definitely affix the seal to this. And my test is, and it's a very old test, somebody just said to me, lick your finger, rub it over the stamp. A little bit gross. You don't want to do it in COVID times. So I didn't do it in COVID times. Never know who else has been licking that piece of paper, quite frankly. Well, you never know. There might be strange sods like me that do that sort of stuff. We sent that on off, and I do believe we got a requisition on it. So I don't think we've covered bylaws yet. There are other things that have been covered, however, by the LRS under some new guidelines, and they've got some new guidelines up for registrations of plans and bylaws that are registered with the plans. So that will help for new properties coming online. Just doesn't existing properties at the moment. What I would really like to see, if anybody from the LRS or the government is out there, is an extension to the 6-month time frame to be able to get bylaws registered. Quite frankly, if we're supposed to be affixing the seal, then it's really, really handy to have that extra time frame, because at the moment strata managers are having to run into the office. We actually have a couple of lawyers that we've been sending around to the office just to meet one-on-one if replacement CTs, for instance, are required, because that requires a statutory declaration. We won't have to do that anymore. So again, there's been a win for lawyers and strata managers everywhere this week.
Yeah.
The new audio-visual witnessing, or it's the electronic transactions amendment, in brackets COVID-19 witnessing of documents, brackets regulation 2020, is what we're all talking about. If you are, the pedantic sort, but that's a win for everybody. That will definitely help, but I think there's more needed. Even though restrictions are relaxing, it's not back to normal, and I don't know how long it's going to take to get back to normal, and whether we actually will get back to normal. And I was having this discussion, quite interestingly, as part of the hearing I was doing this morning, and one of the comments from, I think it was the tribunal member, or it could have been from my opponent, was that one, definitely this came from the tribunal member, because I queried to say, when do you think you will be getting back to hearings, face-to-face hearings? She actually said that the tribunal is considering video conferencing, and you can apply to have video conferencing if you're doing cross-examinations. So there's a tip for everybody. If we don't get back to normal, that's something that you really should be looking at, but apply closer to the date of your hearing. There's only so many facilities that they've got available, apparently. And the other comment was, are we going to get back to normal? Is the justice system going to have fundamentally changed some of the ways it does things? Now, I have, before, as I said, a fully set up home office. Why? Because every now and again I like to work from home. Doesn't mean I work any less hard or produce any less quality. You can notice the minion has not been in with my red wine, by the way.
You need to ring the bell, Alison.
I did have a bell. The bell got broken.
Oh, I wondered who broke it.
I did have a bell. A girlfriend bought me the bell. The bell wasn't appreciated, so the bell went out. I know, you thought that was in jest, didn't you? No, I've tried it. I have tried it.
No, I do just want to, I hope I'm not cutting off your thought there, but I just want to acknowledge something. It's on this track that Sean has just posted, that's Sean B, and I understand that Sean is leading a large strata management company in Sydney, and he's popped in there helpfully for us that there is what he's calling a COVID Strata Act. Maybe that's some amending legislation for our strata legislation in New South Wales that is being circulated, that lasts for only, don't have regulation where much of the detail is due in 2 weeks, so that's exciting for us to watch here in New South Wales. Policy positions, and yes, I imagine, Sean, this has come from the discussion paper that's been released by SCA, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and that is on our COVID information hub. Policy positions would be first AGM after initial period expires, so dealing with how we conduct that and meet that time frame, and extending the duration of the pandemic period from 2 months to 6 months. I'm not quite sure what that means. Transferring funds between admin fund, vice versa. Okay, so if you aren't able to meet to raise levies, then you can use funds that might be in your capital works fund for your admin purposes, and vice versa, without having that meeting resolution that you would otherwise need to have. There's a whole raft of things really that need to be dealt with, and I'm sure our industry body is across that, Sean, and thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'd really love to receive those updates. That's the beauty of this kind of platform. We're all here filling each other in. Of course, meetings in particular, in New South Wales, not being able to have electronic meetings or meetings other than in person unless we've opted in for that process previously, that's causing a problem. I imagine that will be dealt with in this draft legislation that Sean's talking about. Interestingly, Alison, you and I were talking about this in Queensland. They do have in their COVID emergency legislation a provision that allows for regulations to be made under other relevant legislation, whatever that may be, that wherever there is a requirement under legislation to meet in person, then that requirement can be amended to permit meeting by other means, for example, electronically. That came through on the 23rd of April and is the Queensland, the COVID-19 Emergency Response Act of 2020. We do in New South Wales have an Emergency Measures Act Act that is amended every now and then, but it doesn't have this same clause that the Queensland Act has about being able to make regulations that just govern a whole raft of things. And of course, we can understand the direct impact that that would have on Queensland body corporates if the body corporate legislation in Queensland took up that right, that power to amend the regulations or to make regulations to permit electronic meetings. So that's really exciting for Queensland, and I hope that the legislation we're talking about introducing in New South Wales would be very similar to that. I'm not sure why we don't have that. It would seem quite simple to allow something like that.
It would be very, very handy too, and it takes away a lot of the stress and angst that strata managers in particular have been, having. How do you explain that we just haven't got it yet? Strata owners, I'm sorry, bear with me, we can't have this meeting. I've been using or advising people to do a workaround, send a proxy to the strata manager, have a meeting called. Strata manager doesn't necessarily have many people attend the office, if at all, encourages them to stay away, and then waits the 30 minutes until the quorum requirement has been waived. Yep. And then 2 motions on the agenda. One is the minutes of the last meeting. Second motion is to adopt an electronic meetings schedule, basically, or meetings bylaw. A meetings motion. Yep. And that's been a workaround. But I think in Strata, this is actually quite good, because in Strata, and this is why I like it, we are actually quite creative about doing what we need to do. Okay, we can't do it this way. How else can we get the desired result? And I think as long as we've got goodwill out there, people will continue to do this. And I think there's a lot of sharing going on. As you said, you're getting 2 for 1. There's 2 strata lawyers. We're with different firms, but we communicate to each other to say, okay, is this working? That's not working. What do we need to do? Who needs to go and start pushing, government buttons to get things done, Amanda?
Oh, yes. Well, sure. I tell you what, the people who are here on this page and who turn up every week and consume this information, and you guys are the ones who are out there as well, I know, doing your bit to get our voice heard, and I really, really appreciate that, and I appreciate you bringing it back to us to let us know what is going on. When it comes to information sharing, I want to let everybody know something that we're discussing doing in my own building. We do need to have a general meeting. There are a couple of things we really need to approve. And we have some outdoor space in our building. We have a back garden, reasonably large. And when I read the public health orders, and I've mentioned this on these videos before, the public health orders do not apply to restrict gatherings in your own home, to restrict gatherings in private spaces. Yes, we can't have visitors coming until our amendments this weekend. But if you are all living in the same strata building, there is actually no law in New South Wales that prevents all the people who live there from gathering on the common property. So something that I have suggested to my committee and to my strata manager is, if we need to have this general meeting, is it possible that we could communicate to owners and say, look, we're going to have it at 10 a.m. on a Friday morning. We're going to have it in the back garden. We are doing that in accordance with the laws, and we will explain how that's applicable. These are the matters that need to be on the agenda. We would encourage people to direct a proxy to a resident, and we are hoping to only have 3 or 4 residents actually present with the chairperson to keep the least amount of people present as possible. We will, of course, even though legally we don't have to, we will, of course, practice social distancing when we're in the back garden, outdoor space, having that meeting. But please communicate with the strata manager, communicate with the following members of the committee to make sure there are the least number of persons present at the meeting as possible, and that only those present are actually residents. So there's no investors who are travelling to attend the meeting, which may previously, and maybe even under our amended public health orders, have been a bit questionable in New South Wales. So you're right, Allison, there are creative solutions. And I think that the good thing for Australia generally is that we are doing so well that we are, right or wrong, getting a little bit more confident about implementing some of those solutions and meeting in outdoor spaces to do achieve the emergency resolutions that we need to achieve.
Now, and what you were saying before is, you and I have slightly different opinions on the public-private divide, and that's great, because it creates discussion. I'm urging owners' corps to be very careful, and community schemes for that matter, to be very, very careful. For instance, with the public orders, did they apply to community schemes and owners corporations? Because it is a private site. If you look at discrimination law, there's been a couple of cases in the CTTT, which is the predecessor to NCAT, and they said, no, it is private, discrimination laws, unless there's a particular section that refers to private spaces, doesn't apply. There is another case from the Administrative Appeals Tribunal that very clearly said there was discrimination in a strata plan and it did apply. And we have had a heck of a lot of legislation or legislative guidance or cases on this. So we've got one case of the AAT saying, yes, it does apply. It is a discrimination law does apply to these private places, even though the law actually says it applies to public places. And we've got the CTTT saying, no, go away. AAT, you've got this completely wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And a strata scheme is a private space, which is, there's no clarity. What I've been saying to my schemes is just play it safe. If you have large gatherings in these areas, you need to be able to control them, quite frankly. I don't think we still know exactly how COVID spreads. If you can ensure that there is significant cleaning or the appropriate amount of cleaning, which, again, I'm not sure anybody actually knows.
No.
Comfortable with that, well, then that's a manageable risk, or a risk that you're happy to take. If you don't have cleaning in your scheme and you have a heck of a lot of people using the private gym, and, let's face it, lots of people don't have as great a hygiene as you would like them to have. I've been in gyms. I've seen, not that you can tell at the moment, I've got the COVID kilos, but I've been in gyms. You can see, sweat marks, towels, that sort of thing. You just think, oh, no. So you don't really want someone like that using public-private within your community scheme. So if that's sort of happening, you need, as a community, to decide what risk you're willing to take. And not necessarily in terms of breaching the public health orders, but could you, if somebody does get sick, be sued in negligence for that? And I think that's a possibility. So I think as long as you know the risk as a community and you're happy to deal with it and you've got strategies in place to manage it, okay. But I don't know at the start of this that many people did.
You're right. Yeah.
I think we've gotten a lot more sophisticated about how we deal with things.
Absolutely. I mean, we have come so far in the last 7 weeks, I tell you, from when I started doing these happy hours and just seeing the same people who are turning up every week and knowing more and learning more and sharing so much helpful information. My mantra has been, what is the least worst decision that we can make in this situation as a committee? Because we're not given hard and fast rules. There are shades of grey, and we need to be taking into account the specific circumstances of our building. What is good for one building and safe for one building is not necessarily good and safe for another. I just want to head over because there's quite a few questions popping up here, and I'm mindful of the time. I'm seeing a long question there from Jacqueline about access by contractors to do work that I understand has been approved in her scheme. One question I want to ask you, Jacqueline, just post it down below for me, is where are you? I have a feeling you may be in Queensland, so that's just important for me to know before I jump in and cover off that one. I am just scrolling down. David is saying, with increased internal noise with kids and parents at home, won't any complaints to NCAT result in advice that people should just have to put up with it for the duration? Yes, that could well be the case, David, nuisance complaints. And just one thing I wanted to say on the noise front and on the visitor front, really bear in mind, under our public health orders, it is not the resident who is breaching the public health order when they have people come over. It is the visitor who shouldn't have left their own home to visit someone else who is breaching the public health order. So just bear that in mind, because I've heard a few people say, oh, we're going to go after the residents, we're going to send the police after the residents. If the police turn up, they'll be fining the visitors who are not in their home, or at least they were, until we had our amended legislation this weekend, depending on how many people you've got there. Sorry, Alison, I thought you were going to jump in about the nuisance and the noise issue with kids at home.
Well, it's definitely been a problem. Look, I've even before COVID, I've had nuisance and noise complaints being taken, and one of them I have been told was the effect of, well, really, most people live in Strata have to expect a level of noise. They said, well, have a look at the noise testing that's been done. We think this is excessive and shouldn't have been noise to this level. Yes, we might have to hear a little bit, but we shouldn't be able to tell what colour of undies this person is wearing because we know what that sounds like when they put them on.
What does blue sound like?
Oh, clearly, I love blue. It sounds brilliant. It sounds bubbly, in fact, Amanda. It sounds bubbly. I actually try and refer people. If you're living in an apartment, I actually think a really good standard for guide is the Australian Acoustical Association's guide for townhouses and apartments, because unlike just getting a report to say, well, it's this many decibels, blah blah blah, it puts it into context for people like me that says, well, what does that sound like? And failing somebody coming and making the noise right next to my ear, I can't get a grip of what it is. But this guideline actually says, well, for the 3-star rating, you should be able to hear muffled noises, blah, blah, blah. A 2-star rating, you'll be able to hear the television of the people next door. You might not know what program it's on, but when they change the channel. For a 6-star rating, you shouldn't be able to hear pretty much anything, but very few buildings are 6-star rating. They have to generally be purpose designed to be 6-star rating buildings. But I always try and go and say, when people come to me with a noise complaint, and that it has been increasing, but I do say, well, let's have a look at this star rating system. What can you hear? What is the type of noise? How often are you hearing it? I tend to be a bit more blasé. I don't mind happy noises. So if it's kids playing, yes, sometimes it gets.
How happy, Alison?
Did
you see my post? Did you see my post earlier last weekend? My post about some very happy noises.
I did. I don't want to hear that happier noise. Thank you. No.
Not all the time. Not all the time. Not every night. Really. I mean, the pressure. Oh, really?
Oh, no. So no, happy noises like children playing or not, I can again go back to the underwear comment and hear when it's coming off and going back on. Don't need to know that sort of noises, thanks. So yeah, sorry, we've probably gone down quite a level. Up to you, Amanda. Raise the tone.
Well, yes, we've covered noise. Thank you, David, for that question. I'm just going back to Jacqueline, who has told me that she's in New South Wales, which is great, Jacqueline. Allison and I are hopefully well qualified to answer your question. I think the summary is that there is work that has agreed to be done. The owners' corporations agreed to do on the common property. It is repair and maintenance work, and they are now delaying that using COVID as an excuse. And Jacqueline, the answer to that is we have very clear law in New South Wales, and Allison's been involved in a number of these cases. That goes to show that the obligation, the legal duty under Section 106 of our Strata Schemes Management Act to repair and maintain common property is unavoidable. It is absolute. It is a strict duty. So what you want to be doing is reminding your owners corporation of that, reminding them that they're in breach of their Section 106 duty to repair and maintain common property when they are avoiding that and delaying work. There is no, as I said earlier, public health order or other state law that would prevent contractors from coming on site. And you've mentioned there that you have 51% of the unit entitlement. So yes, absolutely, requisition a meeting and put forward a motion. And if it's repair and maintenance work, then that would be an ordinary resolution. Call a poll and resolve to release the funds, I think is the issue for you, to have that work completed. Does that sound about right, Allison?
It sounds absolutely right. There's no free passes, basically. You've still got to maintain and repair your buildings. The legislation, or the emergency legislation I was talking about before, that actually extended the hours that construction couldn't be undertaken if there is a development consent. And Jacqueline, I don't know if your work required a development consent or whether it's exempt development, but if it is, this would apply. It's the Environmental Planning and Assessment COVID-19 Development Construction Workdays Order 2020. And basically from the 2nd of April, it means if there was development consent, then the days on which construction on that site can be undertaken has increased. So if you have a builder and they want to work on a Saturday, a Sunday, or a public holiday, then all they need to do is comply with the requirements of consent that restrict the hours of work from Monday to Friday. And generally those hours are from about 8 o'clock to about 8 o'clock. And they can still work on a Saturday, Sunday, or public holiday, but they can't conduct rock breaking, rock hammering, sheet piling, pile driving, any other similar noisy activities, as long as they take all feasible and reasonable measures to reduce the noise. So handily says the legislation. So, in fact, just going completely against what Your Owners Corporation has said, the New South Wales Parliament is actually trying to help building going on at this moment by extending the hours upon which people can be doing construction work. So there's absolutely no excuse for your scheme. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably what Jacqueline wants to hear, and she's saying thank you there. Thank you, Alison. I am seeing a question about electronic voting for committee meeting elections. This keeps coming up, Alison. And Sean O, who has posted this has come up in our member forum. And I think, Sean, if you have access to that, check out what codename TS1904 has said in our member forum about that. I think he posted something quite detailed. It might have been in response to a question that you posted. Do check that out. I had a quick glance at it and haven't dug into it. But Alison, have you addressed this issue of whether we can have committee meeting elections by electronic voting? Our legislation, go ahead.
I was looking at, because I have a major strata renewal scheme that's going on, and we need to have a meeting to pass a special resolution to extend the strata renewal committee. Because the strata renewal plan isn't working or isn't in form yet. And because of that, I was looking at clauses 14 and 15 of the Strata Management Regulation 2016, and obviously a New South Wales one, and they govern pre-meeting electronic voting and voting by any other means, i.e. by electronic means. And it's pretty clear you can't actually elect strata committee members using that, and it's unfortunate. So one thing you can't do electronically. So that strata legislation that was it Sean that was mentioning that?
Yep.
That would be absolutely something like that in, because what we're going to see is under the Act in New South Wales, the strata committee actually is terminated at the end of the AGM, and the new strata committee takes over. But if you're having AGMs electronically, well, then you end up with no strata committee. If you're a strata manager, then at least you've delegated the powers of chair, secretary, and treasurer to your strata manager. But it doesn't take, it doesn't help if you want to be a hands-on manager and have residents interested in their building.
Yeah. My understanding was, and I'll have to go back and check this, was that in New South Wales we say the strata committee remains in place until the end of the AGM at which a new strata committee is elected. So if no strata committee is elected, then your old one may roll over, but we'll just have a look at that. That would be Schedule 1 in our Strata Schemes Management Act. Yes, very interesting, all these little things that are coming up. I'm seeing Matthew, who is in Queensland, and I can hear the boys there in the background.
Everybody, that's the dog barking. If you're a very deep, grunty one, that is the little one, who is smaller than the Dogosaurus.
Very cute they are. I know, I've seen them. I was Matthew, who is in Queensland, and I know produces voting software in Queensland. They've got that covered off. I mentioned to some Queensland practitioners earlier in the week. I said, "Oh, you've got this. That your emergency powers allow you to make these regulations about electronic meetings, and you're ahead of the game there." And they said to me, "Yeah, Amanda, since when are we not ahead of the game, ahead of New South Wales when it comes to Queensland body corporates?" I don't know. I haven't been around long enough. I don't know if that's how it's always been.
I think the only comeback we can come back with isn't most of the Strata legislation based on our original legislation. It's just we're clinging very tightly to it and haven't changed very much across the years from 1961 or 1963, whatever it was. So they've just boomed ahead, essentially.
Yeah, I'm seeing there a comment from Bruce saying fair trading says you can elect a committee. Bruce, I tell you what, we got to take what fair trading tells us with a grain of salt. So many, Alison would have experienced it as well. So much that comes out of fair trading, unfortunately, is I like to call it wishful thinking, and maybe they say things that they think are reasonable and this should be the case, but when you actually look at the legislation properly, it's not the case. So unfortunately, they're not always helpful, and you do need to dig a little bit deeper.
Look, I have been so mean as to when I have had a client insist that fair trading has told them this and I was wrong and fair trading was right. I said, okay, here's a phone. Let's call fair trading and we'll pretend, my name's Mary Sue and I've got the same problem. Let's see what gets said. 10 minutes later, after I've hung up on the first phone call, okay, Billy Bob, you're going to call now and ask the exact same question. And you honestly can get, within a very short space of time, 2 different answers.
Yeah,
it depends on who you speak to, essentially.
Yeah.
So just take it with a grain of salt.
I think Bruce is now telling me that his tongue was firmly planted in his cheek when he posted that comment, and no sarcasm intended. Thank you, Bruce. Now, we have a couple more minutes, but I want to ask the question. I want to ask it. I don't want to ask it. I don't know if I should open this can of worms. That is why I've left it for the last 60 seconds. Allison, are we downloading the app? Should we be downloading the app? No, I'm not going to ask it that way. I'm going to say, are you downloading the app?
Look, I am so incredibly boring that I have downloaded the app. Look, if somebody, quite frankly, wants to follow my handouts, good luck to them, because they're not going to get any joy out of it, quite frankly. So I have downloaded the app. I have encouraged my mother and my elderly stepfather, who have been placed in quarantine because of compromised immune systems, that when mum goes out to get groceries, because they live in a regional area and there's no deliveries, that they should have the app on their phone as well. Because I, for one, would like to know that in their particular situation, they've been told if one of them catches it, they will likely die. So in those sort of circumstances, I think it's public spirited to do it. We're talking about asking our staff to come back. They're all getting a little bit stir crazy at home. So we're talking about coming back in on different days, back into the office. We do have a big enough office that they can all safely come back in at once. But we thought we'll keep the teams separate if we can. And we've said to them, guys, look, if we want to implement this, let's try and be safe. You guys have to catch public transport. It would be safer for you, safer for your colleagues, if you had knowledge, if any one of you had been contacted or in contact with somebody that had tested positive. So, yep, I have. I've downloaded the app. But as you said, I'm so bloody boring. Nobody's going to be interested. Quite frankly.
And just on that point about employees, just because I know we've got a number of Strata managers who are leading teams who are here and also watching later, I was reading some of the detail of the app, and I actually found, here I'm going to promote yet another New South Wales lawyer. There is a link, and Rochelle, if you're there and you can see it in the notes, there's a link to quite a detailed article from Allen's, a big firm across the country, and I found that article quite helpful to explain all the good stuff about the app, some of the question marks around the app. And one thing I didn't appreciate was that there is provisions in there that prevent any employer from making it mandatory for employees to download the app, or for anybody to force anybody else in any circumstance to download the app, or it is actually an offence. I think they're making it an offence to download it on somebody's phone without their consent. So that's really interesting. I'm going to give you my quick answer, because I know you will post it in the comments. If I don't, you'll post a question again in the comments if I don't answer it. I haven't yet downloaded the app, so I will play devil's advocate to you here, Allison, and I will say that I'm going to wait for the legislation that I believe is coming when Parliament reconvenes this month, and to see what additional specifics there are in that legislation about the protection of our data, particularly when it may be stored on servers accessible by other countries. So that's my answer for you on the app. And would love to hear if anybody wants to share their position on the app or their questions or their criticisms or comments. Please do pop them in the comments section there. Allison, your dogs are so desperate to see you. I can hear them.
They're just, it's almost like the neighbours have come home and they've decided to say hello to the neighbours, which is exactly what they're doing.
And you must be thirsty because your minion, as you call him, and he is lovely, and I am going to have a word to him about you calling him your minion on a public Facebook record here, is waiting with your glass of wine for you.
Yes. Do you know what? I actually, before this meeting, I went and had a look at the wine rack and said, I'd like this one. And as he walked outside to pick the boys up from their little session, so my boys went for a haircut today, I said, oh, this glass would be very nice from this bottle to bring in during the meeting. I don't trust myself sitting with it before the meeting not to start before everybody else because it's not yet 5.
And did you write that down? And did you put it on a sign? Did you put it on the whiteboard as we do in my family to make sure?
No, I didn't, and that was my error, I think. Oh, it really was. And I didn't even text him. I was quite good. I didn't text and say, where is it? So, I suspect there would have been a rather sarcastic response coming back in. And I think this has been fun and games for everybody, hearing your partners at work and thinking, oh, that person actually is professional. So you see them in a completely different light, and walking in on each other's phone conferences or video conferences has been a delight.
Yes.
So, yes.
Always fun. We're all learning new skills, that's for sure. It has been lovely spending Friday Happy Hour with you, Allison Benson. Thank you so much for joining us. If you will head back over to this page, Allison, kindly, and put the link to your blog in the comments, that would be excellent because it's a very good blog, and I think our followers here would be well placed to be reading that one regularly. I know that there are questions in this list here that I have not got to, as I'm a little bit similar to you, Allison. It's a little bit sad, the social side of things, and what I'm up to these days. Friday night is coming back and answering the comments on the live video. So I will do that as best I can. I do want to say, if you're a member, and there's a number of members of our Your Strata Property online community here, if you're a member, pop your question in the member forum because I'll be able to give you a more detailed answer there. But I will do my best over the next 24 hours to pop some quick answers and links where relevant to these comments and questions. I'm seeing lots of thank yous come through. Thank you, everyone, for being here. If you like this, please give us a thumbs up, give us a love heart, a smiley face. Facebook loves that, and they send it out to all the people who need to know this information to make sure that they too can be living as calmly, as peacefully in Strata at the moment, making the least worst decision, armed with some good quality information. And that's definitely what we've got today from Allison. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Will do. So now I'm becoming, as you said, quite au fait with technology, and I'm off to our team's virtual drinks.
Virtual drinks. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're not missing out. Grab that bottle, woman. Enjoy.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.